Welcome to NFL World, where the NFL starts and ends. I'm your host, Jacob, and we're going to talk about all the trades that happened. I'm going to cheat a little bit. Some of these trades happened before the deadline, but most of them are the day of the deadline. So let's begin. The Dolphins got Jaelan Phillips to the Philadelphia Eagles for a 2026 third-round pick. Now, this Dolphins team was going nowhere fast. They were not a good team. They were okay on defense when it came to one player, that being Jaelan Phillips. Now, Jaelan Phillips had the most pressures on the team. He actually was top 5 in the league in pressures since week 3. So he's been getting pressure. He's also on his first contract. Still has a 5th-year option that the Eagles acquired. So this helps the Eagles for the future, as well as in the current time frame, because this Eagles team, when having to go against better opponents, has not been able to get pressure. Jaelan Phillips hopefully rectifies that. Is this a solution to the problem? Well, yes, no. The team has had a hard time getting pressure, like I said before. That does not mean that they can't find pressure in other ways, but hopefully this unlocks something for them. You brought Brandon Graham back out of retirement. You're trying to find some other stuff, but there's no guarantee it's going to work. But you're hoping it does. I think the reason Jaelan Phillips was available and why so many of the Dolphins players were available, your team is awful. You fired your general manager, person who basically does the operational control of that franchise, in Chris Greer. You fire him. He's been with the team since 2000. You tried, and I say try, to make it work. Defensively, you're a nightmare. You're just a complete disaster. Offensively, you're extremely disappointing. It's not going well. So you had 3 players, 4 players if you included Jordan Brooks, that you could possibly trade, being Jordan Brooks, Jaelan Phillips, Bradley Chubb, and Minkah Fitzpatrick. That didn't happen, ultimately, but it was up there. You ended up dealing Jaelan Phillips. You wanted the third. You got a third from the Eagles, who are trying to make a playoff run at this. They're coming off a bye week. What I'm going to say for most of these teams, when you're on bye week, it's really hard to get a guy acclimated as quickly as you can. The Eagles actually have a little bit of an advantage because they only play Monday night. So they can get him acclimated. The Cowboys have an advantage because they have the bye week this week, so they can get them acclimated. That's how this works. But for some of these teams, they trade for this guy and they're hoping that he can play on Sunday. That's a hard turnaround to make. But a great job by the Eagles, and also whoever the head coach is going to be, the general manager is going to be, whoever that's going to be, you want to give them as many assets as possible to see, okay, what can we build on? Because like I said, Jaelan Phillips is a good player, still on his first contract. That was one of the reasons he was available. Another reason being, has an injury history. Achilles, ACL, these are injuries that it's hard to come back from. Vic Fangio, there's familiarity there when prior to Phillips' Achilles injury, he had 6+ sacks with Vic Fangio being the defensive coordinator. So there, again, like I said, familiarity. So this was a great move by the Eagles. You got to try to keep pace. You're number 1 in the conference. Even though at times you haven't played like it, you got to keep pace as much as possible. So a great win by getting Jaelan Phillips. The Eagles, prior to the trade deadline, traded for Jaire Alexander, and they sent a 6th-round pick in 2026 to the Baltimore Ravens. I just don't think Jaire Alexander fit in Baltimore. Remember, there was a whole thing that we talked about with Packers and how the Eagles, they needed a corner, so this works. But Jaire was in Green Bay. He gets cut as a cap casualty. He finds his way into Baltimore late in the summer. It doesn't work out. He's now going to go to Philly, where they've just had this issue with this other cornerback spot since Darius Slay left. And the thing with Alexander is, and I said it at the time, he gives you great in the fact that he can play outside corner and slot corner. You're going to need him to play outside. You're not bringing him in to be a slot. You have Cooper DeJean that does that. But you need to be that other guy, because whether it was Ringo or Dory Jackson, whomever you put out there, it wasn't working. You need to do something. And maybe he does have a little bit left in the tank, but you got to try something, and this is low risk, very high reward. Maybe he fits in the system better. It's more of a zone scheme anyway. We'll see what happens. And what I mean by zone scheme, before we jump into the next trade, Vic Fangio prefers to have a system where he doesn't want to blitz. He wants to get pressure with his front four. He'll try to play more zone behind it. Every now and then he'll go to man-on-man coverage, but that's not what his game is. So let's see what happens. Let's see what the marriage is going to be between Jaire Alexander and Vic Fangio. Moving on to the Tennessee Titans and the Baltimore Ravens. They made a trade. Baltimore gets Demontre Jones, who was playing with the Titans. Titans get a 2026 5th-round pick. Jones, former Bronco, he's been okay. Decent pass rusher, decent run defender. Really, he needs to be on this Ravens team for run defense. They can't stop the run, really. They really can't. They've gotten better, but they've played lesser opponents. So I'm curious to see if they can make a playoff run on this thing. Can they find a way to do that defensive effort against better opponents? I'm curious to see what happens there. I don't think Demontre Jones is really going to move the needle at all. That's not really the Ravens' bread and butter anyway. They don't like trading for people. They don't like making free agency moves like that. They want to build from within, draft. Every once in a while they'll sign a free agent, but that's pretty much their game plan. It's just draft and develop. And that's fine. They've had success, but sometimes you got to make a move like this to just keep it going. I'm not sure, like I said, that Jones is a needle mover, but this was a move that needed to happen. Moving on to the Raiders and Jacksonville Jaguars made a trade just 2 days after playing each other in a wild game that broke the longest field goal made, Cam Elliott making it from 68. The Jaguars, they've been riddled with injuries. They've had so many injuries. They have a lot of drop passes. Travis Hunter's injured. He's on. There's a lot of things. They need receivers. They called up the Raiders and they said, "What about Jakobi Meyers?" The Raiders said, "We will do it if you send us a 2026 4th-round pick and a 2026 6th round pick. I'm reading it off my notes because it's very hard to remember all these. Let me put it right there. It's very hard to remember all these trades and what the compensation is. But a 4th round pick and a 6th round pick in 2026. This is a great move by the Jaguars. You're doing some good things in that division. The Colts are just kind of running away with it. But you're doing some really good things. You got to keep the pace up as much as you can. Jakobi Meyers has played really well. He wanted a trade for a long time. He didn't get traded. There was rumors that he was going to go back to New England. There was a rumor that that deal was practically done. To find out that he went to Jacksonville instead, it was a good move. It was a good move by the Raiders. And you get good, valuable assets back. And another great move for Jakobi Meyers, he won't be asked to do everything. He won't be having to do so much. He can do other things, which is good for him and good for this Jacksonville offense. Moving on to the Saints, who made 2 big trades. I'm going to kind of loop these two together. The Saints trading Shaheed to the Seattle Seahawks for a 2026 4th and a 2026 5th round pick. That's the first trade. The Saints weren't going nowhere on offense. They're not. They're not where they need to be. So what asset do you have to give up? Well, we got Shaheed, who can run. Seattle, since Metcalf, they don't really have somebody outside of JSN that can go down the field consistently and almost break the sound barrier with how quickly he can move down the field. And that's what Shaheed does. So you sent 2 day 3 picks to get him. That's great. Great job. The other Saints trade was Trevor Penning. They sent him to the Los Angeles Chargers for a 2027 6th round pick. Penning kind of fell out of favor. He hasn't been very good. And the Chargers, Joe Alt got hurt again. So he's out. Slater's out. You've had a lot of injuries. You just got to figure out where can we move from here. And they brought in Penning, who has played some offensive guard, some tackle. He can do many things. He's going to be tackle out for the Chargers. So let's see what happens. But it was a good move. You didn't want him. You got what you could for him. So there you go. I was a little surprised it wasn't like a bigger name like a Demario Davis or a Cam Jordan. But then I thought about it this morning and I was like, what am I talking about? Those are legacy players. They wouldn't get traded because they're going to retire as Saints. Unless they say, no, I want a chance to actually win a ring, in which case I can't do it here. I'm going to leave. That could happen. But the Saints, they're trying to build up this draft capital as much as possible to whoever the quarterback is and however they can put people around him. Another name that was kind of shocking was they didn't move on from Chris Olave. So that was a curious move. I'm curious by that, but I wasn't expecting Shaheed to be moved. The Cleveland Browns are sending Tryon. I'm going to mispronounce this name a lot, but I think it's pronounced Shoyinka. They sent Tryon Shoyinka to the Bears for a 6th round pick in 2026. Shoyinka has not been very good. He just hasn't. He was in Tampa Bay, goes to Cleveland, doesn't really impress, gets traded, goes to Chicago. This is more of, what can we get for this player that we don't want anymore? And if we don't get anything, we'll just cut him. That's what they did. And it's fine. That does happen in this league. So you got something for him. whomever the coach is, if it's still Stefanski, if Joe Barry's still or if Barry's still the general manager, you'll figure something out. But whomever the coach is, whomever the GM is, you got to figure out how to utilize these picks correctly and not, let's just do this because this will create good headlines, great work. Now, talking about great headlines and great work, we got 2 trades by the Jets and 2 trades by the Cowboys. I wanted to put these as the last 2 because I think these connect together, but I think we're going to have it separated in a way because I don't want to link it like I did Saints. Because these are 2 blockbuster trades. Prior to the trade deadline, it was talk that Jets might be shopping a big name, but who knows if it would get done. They said that they would only make a trade if it was a quote-unquote Godfather offer. And if it was a Godfather offer, what would that look like? Well, the Colts found out what that offer looked like as they traded 2 first-round picks and Adonai Mitchell to the Jets for Sauce Gardner, who they just paid. The Jets just paid in the offseason. This Jets team, I looked at it, I felt a little better about the compensation, but I wrote some of my social medias. I said, I actually put Woody is out of his mind, which I might get in trouble for in the future. Who knows? But I think he's out of his mind because you trade a guy who's 24, who I know he's not been the best in the last 2 years, but he's been really good for you at spots and in moments. And I was just trying to figure that out. And then I kind of sat back and thought about it in the last couple hours. And I thought about, are they close enough to a championship anyway? And the answer was no, they weren't. So what could they get? What was the most valuable that they could give up to get? And again, these Godfather offers. What were these Godfather offers looking like? You got 2 first-round picks. Okay. You got a receiver, which you don't have a wide receiver to. So there you go. Garrett Wilson's going to come back. Whomever the quarterback is, whether it's Justin Fields, Tyrod Taylor, somebody else, whoever it is, they got to put this all together. Not because I think they can make a run at this thing. I'm saying that because can you make it look better? Can you make the on-the-field product look better? And Mitchell can stretch the field. Similar to what we said about Shaheed, about how JSN can already stretch the field on one side, Shaheed can do it to the other side, and now you open up the defense. That's what the Jets need to do. Because you got Breece Hall back there. You gotta make it easier for him. You gotta make it easier for the tight ends. You gotta make it easier for everybody else. By bringing in Adonai Mitchell, who can run, and Garrett Wilson, who can run, it stretches the defense out. And that's what you want. So it was a good trade. You got a lot. And you know you weren't going anywhere. It was just shocking to see. Another shocker for the Jets was their decision to trade Quinnen Williams, but I'll explain why it wasn't after what Ian Rappaport said. The trade for Quinnen Williams, the Jets send Quinnen Williams to the Cowboys for a 2026 second-round pick, a 2027 first-round pick, and Mozzie Smith. Let's begin with the Jets side of this. According to Ian Rappaport, Quinnen Williams and his relationship with the Jets kind of deteriorated after the Jets decided to move on from Aaron Rodgers. Remember when they brought in Aaron Rodgers and they said it's a new dawn, a new age, and all that stuff, and we have a chance to go win a Super Bowl. And it didn't happen, and we get to the free agency, and the Jets decided we're going to part ways with Aaron Rodgers, and they did. They parted ways. Once that happened, Quinnen Williams, behind closed doors, asked for a trade. It wasn't granted at the time. And since then, he's asked for 2 more trades behind closed doors. He has not made this public. He did not have his agent make this public. He went and asked behind closed doors. It didn't get out to the media at all, which is good. Now, in the case of the Cowboys, they did call the Jets when they were shopping Micah Parsons. And when they were shopping Micah, the trade they wanted was 2 first-round picks and Quinnen Williams. The Jets declined. So the Cowboys get their man that they wanted. The Jets give Quinnen what he wants, which is he wanted to get out of there. It works for both sides. Now, what they got back, you could say, if you're the Cowboys side, we won that deal because we didn't give him a first-round pick this year. We gave him it next year. We can't really draft in the second round, so it doesn't matter. Therefore, we don't care about that one. And Mozzie Smith was not a good football player, so let's get rid of him. And the fact we could throw that all in one and let's go was a good deal. That's how they think about it. That's how I think about it. For the Jets, they have an image they want to build with Aaron Glenn. So the question becomes, how long of a period do they give Aaron Glenn to build this? I'm curious because of what you got back in return and all the draft picks. You should be able to either look for a quarterback this year or build around what you currently have. So when you look next year or the year after or whatever you're choosing to do, that you can go and say, you know what, we got the team. Now let's go find a quarterback. Because right now I don't know if they have it or not. But it's really hard to imagine that Justin Fields is the guy. It's very hard to imagine that. The last trade, which ended up being another Cowboys trade, the Cincinnati Bengals trade Logan Wilson to the Dallas Cowboys for a 2026 7th. This is a win for the Bengals because they benched Logan Wilson, but it's a loss too. Does that make sense? It's a win and loss at the same time. They won because they would have cut him anyway. They would have had to because they had already benched him. That's the loss factor. He was a starter. You bench him. You put 2 young linebackers out there who, they're young, they're athletic, but they're not the same. They're not going to have the same football knowledge and sustainability in the play. And who could? Now, the reason you bench a guy like Logan Wilson is saying he's getting older, he doesn't fit with what we want to do, and da-da-da-da-da-da. I think Logan Wilson fit what Lou Anarumo wanted to do. But with the new defensive coordinator, I don't think he fit the new defensive coordinator's defense. And I think that's what age is going to look a certain way when you are doing things that you're not comfortable in. In the case of Logan Wilson, I think that's what happened in Cincinnati. For the Cowboys, this is a win and a multiple. It's just like 2 wins for them because, and it goes back into the Quinnen Williams point about you didn't pay a lot for this player. They gave a 7th round pick for Logan Wilson. And if it pans out and he looks good, he's a starter for you, which is not a very high bar, but because Kenneth Murray's been so terrible. But if it works for you, he's a starter. And you kind of need that because this linebacking core in Dallas has been so bad. Like Jack's Ham one wasn't very good. In the sense of he knows where the play is going, he's where he needs to be, he's not fast enough getting there. Kenneth Murray is athletic, but he can't. His instincts are completely off. He doesn't know where he's going. Your hope is that Logan Wilson can be a little bit of a mix of the two. That's your hope. The other reason it's a win. Here's the biggest part of this win for the Cowboys in these two trades. If it works out for both players that, okay, Logan Wilson looks really good, Quinnen Williams looks really good, they're locked into contract through 2027. Quinnen Williams is 27 years old. He'll be almost 30 by the time the contract's done. He's going to be 28 in December. He's still in the prime of his career. Logan Wilson, he's a little longer in the tooth, but if he shows he still has that ability and that able to get there and do everything he needs to do, if you're the Cowboys, you feel pretty good about that. So if it pans out for both of them, and it pans out for the Dallas Cowboys in total, you have two guys for the future. I'm not saying you're making the playoffs at all. I'm not saying that. I can't say that. It's not out of the realm. Excuse me. But this is a move for not just the now, but for the future of now. So let's see what happens. It gets really interesting. I'm curious to see what they do moving forward. I wonder what it's going to be like. If it pans out, great. But like for an example, if Logan Wilson doesn't pan out, you gave up a 7th round pick. Okay, whatever. But if it does, if it pans out for both of them, you have starters that you can build around in the next 2 years, which benefits your team. That's something that I don't think is getting mentioned on the big platforms like ESPN, PFT, FS1. It's not getting mentioned. But if it does happen and it benefits them, you have to give it big wins to the Cowboys, which I think there's a couple teams that have won big in this trade deadline. Colts, I think, was one of them. Seattle's another one. Philadelphia and Dallas. I think the way they used it was proper, because if you are fighting for something, whether it's this year or next, willing to go and say, let's make a move. Let's go for a move. In the case of the Colts, they feel like they can win it now. In the case of the Cowboys, it might not be now. If let's say magically they did make it to where they're only a game out of the playoff, or they're in the playoff, or they're in the 7th seed, whatever. Okay, great. It happened. Awesome. But this is more of a move for the following years. So just different ways of doing it, but also making it work in your favor. Let me know in the comments who won the trade deadline and what was your favorite move at the trade deadline. For NFL World, I'm Jacob Hebert. Out.